Hey guys, Neptune here. I'm back with another soul psychology video, but this one is quite different and will probably have the least psychology of all soul psychology series. Now, I'll be honest, I think I've leveraged my position in community enough to the point I don't really care who shames what and all the jazz that is happening. Instead, today I want to talk about something that plenty of people have asked me to talk about. That is, utilizing your strengths and tailoring your own game plan. So, what is game plan? Game plan is your script that will lead you to the victory in the duel. Game plan is your vision of the win in PvP encounter. Game plan is how you see your tools being utilized to net you a victory. Game plan is something that you set and create before the duel to follow it during the duel. To understand what game plan is, it is important to understand the factors that influence and shape it, such as understanding of weapon matchups, reading the behavioral patterns your opponent employs, and ability to adapt. Today we're discussing those factors in the context of average duel and inspecting the influence it has on the outcome of the duel and your approach to it. Let's start with understanding the weapon matchups. Now, as I've mentioned in my previous videos, not all weapons are created equal. Some perform better against certain weapons than others. This is how the game is designed. You can't beat a spear with a dagger since it simply has no tools to do so. Or to give you a better example, in a more common scenario, the dashing attack on katana is designed perfectly to punish slow attacks of ultra greatsword, as it has a good reach to zone in even against the longest ultra greatswords in the game, and speed to be used on reaction. This gives a katana user ability to punish every ultra greatsword opening with ease. There's no ultimate weapon in the game, so there's always an objectively better weapon in matchup. However, you should always stick to using what you enjoy using as long as it has the base tools to deal with the matchup. Now, how is that all related to game plan? Well, when you see what weapon your opponent is using, you are doing half of the job. Just like when I see my opponent that has a parry shield out, I know that he'll be relying on parries. Seeing the katana likely means that your opponent will rely on dashing attacks. This allows you to adjust your playstyle beforehand, or swap the weapon to suit the encounter better. However, the weapon is a mere indication of available tools, and not all players follow the same playstyle, which would be very boring. So not every katana user will be relying on dashing attacks, but we will discuss it a bit later. For now, as far as general understanding of matchup goes, always have the best possible tools ready against your opponent based on the weapon he or she uses. By understanding the strengths of your opponent's weapon of choice and his toolset, you gain the ability to select the opponent you will bait for or wait for to punish, so that you can have a clear plan on when you engage at best odds and when you play safe. This gives you general understanding on what your opponent will do and how to react to it. Not only that, it will allow you to read the pattern. Now, Dark Souls PvP is all about pattern reading, understanding how your opponent approaches the duel and his game plan. Pattern is a set of actions that repeat in predictable manner. In context of Dark Souls PvP, pattern refers to the order of attacks that form a setup that is obviously designed to defeat your opponent. This factor is closely related to your game plan, as understanding the range of tools your opponent can utilize is not necessarily enough. You have to understand how your opponent is playing to use them to build your strategy or game plan effectively. This involves reading your opponent's mind to understand his behavior and predict or observe and practice his behavior in relation to certain actions. This is what separates good weapons from bad weapons. When you're facing a bad weapon, just seeing it is enough to build a game plan, as it has a very limited use in PvP. And all of its openings are one-dimensional, meaning that no matter how good your opponent is, the weapon will be always used in the same way. However, top-tier weapons allow multiple playstyles, like S-Stock for example. One can be very aggressive with it, putting a lot of standing pressure on your opponent, or one can be very reactive with it, punishing the whiffs and hiding behind the shield for most of the duel. Understanding what your opponent will do with the tools he has and his game plan is the key part to assessing your own game plan. So before the duel, you have to have a rough idea on what tools are available for your opponent by simply looking at the weapon. And then you have to read during the duel or predict if you're a good player what kind of setups and attack patterns your opponent will utilize to achieve his goal. You can plan and have a good idea, but it rarely goes according to our plans, so you have to be able to adjust. Just like in every fighting game or arena shooter, playing same opponent for a certain amount of matches gives you experience and ability to dig deep into the behavioral patterns and understand your opponent's vision of the game and game plan better. In context of Dark Souls, it can take from a couple of encounters within one duel to 100 duels in a row, depending on your ability to analyze the game and analyze what is happening. If your initial plan is flawed, you're up for a change. It is important to react properly and understand the true reason behind the lack of your success. This is the most important factor when two skilled opponents face each other for the first time. Ability to read on the fly and adjust the game plan to exploit the weaknesses of opposing playstyle using the tools you already have. This is what separates good players from best, ability to shift on the fly without hindering the performance. So if your initial read regarding the setups and behavior your opponent will demonstrate is wrong, you have to adjust. This is where understanding of game fundamentals plays a crucial role. If your opponent is not willing to react to your actions in the way you desire, or if he is playing overly passive instead of being aggressive because you can't apply the pressure, you are losing the control of the duel. Your game plan becomes invalid. To adjust to that, one has to navigate with an own game plan and fix the part that does not work. As in most cases, if you're a good player, that is, only a certain part of the plan fails to function, leading to defeat, and fixing one certain part will allow other parts to be executed as you intended. However, as I mentioned before, for the new and inexperienced players, it may be hard to adjust in the heat of the duel. In this case, how about having a backup plan? That's a good way to adjust and fall back to another preset strategy of yours. If you can't pressure your opponent with aggressive playstyle, why not fall back to another game plan? Swap the playstyle and turn passive. It is easier for inexperienced players to think of two plans beforehand instead of adjusting on the fly within the current game plan, which may not even be possible. This brings us back to understanding the weapon matchups, as you have to be prepared to counter all tools that are available to your opponent, despite your first-hand experience or predictions in regards to the number of tools your opponent will utilize. So in other words, instead of adjusting and fixing your game plan on the fly, try having something extra being ready in case your current game plan fails. The case of extra game plan still revolves around the same factors, except it is barely tailored with the reads in regards to your opponent, since those bad reads are what screwed you in the first place within the initial game plan. Instead, your backup plan should be jack of all trades as much as possible. And when I say that, I don't mean shitty gambling with parries, I mean real game plan, like using different weapon or simply changing playstyle, becoming more aggressive or more passive in certain setups. Even if you lose, try to extract as much as information to make a better read in the future, which will certainly help you to improve your game plan. So where does it all leave us? First of all, learn how to read matchups. What weapons are better against others, and get to know the basic frame data of when you can trade and when you can't. This will allow you to assess general information regarding the tools that are available to your opponent, which is a good way to build your game plan on. Then get to know the basic setups and most common openings of said weapon to get to know how to punish it and establish a duel routine that you will follow to dictate the pace of the duel. Learn what your opponent uses and see if it matches your vision and expectations. If it does, you're set for the win. If it does not, try to adjust the plan by experimenting, follow your game sense. Or if you can't really adjust your current plan, always have a backup plan, something that works against most setups, even with mediocre efficiency. Remember to learn on your mistakes and improve your game plan, as it's the only way to become a better player. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time!